Most people spend 100 hours struggling through lessons they could have mastered in 10. Why? Because they were taught to grind endlessly before ever daring to try. But here's the truth. The universe never meant for learning to feel like punishment. It designed a way that feels lighter, almost lazy, yet brings you closer to real mastery. I'll show you a 5-step loop. Curate, chunk, do first, explain, repeat. This is the simple cycle I've used to unlock skills faster while saving time and energy. Before we go deeper, share one learning struggle in the comments. You'll see how these steps speak to it. And now, let's look more closely at why so many of us were led to believe that struggle itself equals growth. The illusion of hard work is powerful. You've probably felt it. The subtle pressure that tells you growth must always come wrapped in strain. You push harder, repeat the same motions, and end up wondering why the fog never clears. Much of this comes from the patterns many of us absorbed early on. In school, the rhythm was familiar. Read, memorize, review. It felt safe to consume before trying. But here's the catch. That cycle doesn't guarantee progress. It often means your first steps are slowed before they even begin. Think of it as loading a backpack for a long hike. Instead of carrying food, water, or a map, you pile in stones. Heavy, sharp, unnecessary. By the time you reach the trail, you're already tired, and every step feels harder than it should. Learning can take on the same weight. Decks of flashcards, thick binders, endless review sessions, so much effort carried on your back, even if you never take a single step on the path itself. You may also recognize the modern version of that same struggle. Nights lit by the glow of a screen, dozens of videos queued up, article tabs open across your browser, notes stacked on the desk. Information feels like it should be momentum, but instead, it clogs your energy. Hours blur together, you pause halfway through a tutorial, promising to return, but it never happens. Those half-finished lessons pile up like ghosts of progress that never arrive. And even though the time invested was real, the mastery feels distant, slipping away like water through your fingers. This illusion doesn't just slow your growth. It reshapes how you feel about yourself. When you're taught that progress should always be painful, rest begins to look like weakness. If you're not exhausted, you wonder if you're really learning. The pressure to avoid mistakes becomes overwhelming, and before long, mistakes look less like lessons and more like proof of failure. That belief cages you in. Spiritually, it cuts off your openness, narrowing the flood of your own spark. Wisdom doesn't thrive in that prison of fear, yet many stay locked inside by the message that more grind equals more growth. But notice what happens when you step back. More hours do not always equal more knowledge. More repetition does not always lead to mastery. More strain does not always create breakthroughs. The universe often shows you small signs of this truth, those unfinished courses, those abandoned notebooks, those moments when you laugh at yourself for getting lost in the very effort to get better. These aren't signs of laziness, they're signals that the method itself is unsustainable. And here's where the shift begins. Learning isn't about dragging the heaviest load or chaining yourself to endless cycles of review. Real growth happens when effort is aligned and purposeful. It's about carrying only what matters, placing energy in steps that actually move you forward. This doesn't mean refusing hard work, it means refusing wasted work. Imagine what would happen if the noise dropped away. If you traded the overloaded backpack for one clear thread to follow. Fewer distractions, lighter steps, energy flowing not against you but with you. That's where the illusion breaks and any new way forward begins. Keep that image in mind because the very next challenge may not be the grind itself, but something far more subtle, the way you scatter your attention before the journey even starts. Are you one of those who open 10 tabs at once, only to end the night feeling more drained than when you started? You move from video to article to tutorial, hoping the next one holds the missing piece, but end up with fragments instead of a clear whole. That's not clarity, it's distraction wearing the mask of progress. The noise piles up, and instead of moving forward, you're caught circling. Here's the catch. We assume more options give us more power, yet the opposite happens. The more doors you keep half open, the less likely you are to walk through any of them. It's like standing in front of 10 doorways, hesitating, never stepping inside. By the time the day is over, nothing has shifted. Your time and energy were spent pacing the hallway of your own mind. What you actually need isn't more, it's less. Your heart already knows this. With fewer inputs, your shoulders relax, your breath feels steadier, and your thoughts stop scattering in every direction. Choosing one thread reduces the restless energy. Instead of juggling fragments, you hold a single lantern, and that one light is enough to show the next step on your trail. Think back to the last time you focused fully on just one thing, one book, one tutorial, one ritual. Suddenly, time felt different. Instead of slipping away in distraction, your effort landed as practice. The fog lifted because you weren't trying to balance too many voices at once. A single teacher, a single text, gave you direction without the clutter of "what about this?" or "should I try that instead?" So here's the directive. Pick 1 to 3 resources, no more. That is your key. Curating fewer inputs doesn't shrink your potential, it frees it. Modern research on decision fatigue points to this truth. Every extra choice uses up cognitive energy, leaving less strength for real follow-through. When you trim the pile to only your top essentials, you stop wasting mental energy on deciding and start putting energy into doing. Pause with me here. Take 10 seconds. Name the one resource you will actually commit to for your next session. Not the dozen options fighting for space on your screen, just one. Close your eyes if it helps, or speak it out loud. The moment you choose, you shift your energy from scattered planning into focused practice. That simple act marks a turning point. The hallway of doors is behind you, and your feet are finally inside. What makes this path powerful is not only efficiency, it's release. The mental weeds are cut away, and what's left is ground clear enough to walk on. This is where learning starts to flow. It's not about finding a perfect resource, it's about choosing one that's good enough, then stepping fully into it. Commitment itself is the clarity. You commune with one guide, one practice, and progress begins to anchor. By curating less, you gain more. You close out the noise, end the hesitation, and honor yourself with the first true step forward. This isn't laziness, it's wisdom. It's a sign that you're finished circling and ready to engage. And once that choice is made, the next movement is simple. You place your hands on the work itself. You don't plan forever. You don't wait for perfect clarity. You begin, even if the start feels awkward, even if your body resists, because that first touch of practice holds the seed of what comes next. Here is where the shift truly begins. Learning through doing first. This is the heart of the lazy loop. Instead of waiting until you feel completely prepared, you step in before the comfort, before the certainty, and let practice itself reveal the way. You act before you believe you're ready. Of course, stepping in feels awkward. You might think, I don't know enough yet, or I look foolish. That discomfort is normal. In fact, it's a sign that your brain has switched on. Real growth often begins the moment you feel clumsy, not the moment you feel polished. Preparation wants to shield you from mistakes, but growth only arrives when the mistake itself is tested. Think of swimming. You could sit on shore and study every diagram of the strokes. You could memorize the angles of the arms, the turns of the feet, even the timing of the breath. And yet none of that teaches you the feel of the water against your skin. It's only when you step into the pool, floundering and off balance, that your body begins to learn. That small distress is what awakens rhythm. That same applies everywhere. Clarity comes after contact, not before. So try one small, ugly attempt now. Here's a practical way to make this safe. Instead of watching 3 more tutorials, give yourself a micro mission, something under 2 minutes. Type a single line of code. Press a few buttons in the software. Record a short, messy clip. Scribble one awkward sketch. None of it needs to be polished. What matters is engagement. You act, you stumble, and only then do you look up what needs repair. That do first then watch rhythm is what locks in learning. Notice what happens when you miss the mark. You press the wrong button, say the sentence incorrectly, or click where you shouldn't. Instead of defeat, this is ignition. Your mind lights up searching for correction, and because you're searching, the solution embeds far deeper. Smooth success rarely sticks, but struggle, paired with resolution, digs roots that don't fade. This is why confusion first makes clarity stick harder. It feels like disorder, but it is efficient chaos, and it works. Let me reassure you of something. When you feel dumb at the start, that is not evidence of failure. It's evidence of learning. Your brain isn't idle. It's firing, rewiring, forming new pathways. That surge of discomfort means energy is flowing into growth. So don't resist the weirdness. Welcome it. It's a sign you've stepped into the current. Here's the habit to carry forward. Set tiny goals. 1 small win per session. Not 10 pages, not an entire chapter, not the full design. Just 1 completed micro task. This habit scales infinitely. Each small success builds the foundation for the next. Over time, these little victories collect into mastery, but more importantly, they keep you moving without overwhelm. Think of it as lighting a spark each time you try. Every spark is enough to guide you into the next round of practice. And with each round, confusion disentangles into light. This rhythm, try, struggle, then seek clarity, makes growth steady and memorable. Your ego might long for safety in endless diagrams, but real competence blooms from these raw, clumsy beginnings. Once you've touched the tool, made the attempt, and lived through the stumble, the natural next step appears. What you've just tried needs to be voiced, given shape in speech, so your scattered impressions gather into something solid. That next move is where confusion turns into order and where ownership begins. Now comes the stage where your knowledge stops floating in your head and begins to live outside you. This is owning wisdom through expression. The lazy loop isn't complete until you speak what you've learned out loud in your own words. Have you ever heard yourself stumble mid-explanation and realize you weren't as clear as you thought? That small stumble is telling. Silent review often convinces you that everything is solid, but the moment words reach the air, those hidden cracks show themselves. Speaking strips away illusion and replaces it with honesty. Sharing your understanding, even if it's just to an empty room, is an act of clarity. Imagine standing alone and voicing each step of a process. As your ears hear what your mind is trying to build, weaknesses appear. What seemed smooth in silence becomes jagged in sound. But that is not failure. It's a flashlight shining into a cave. Suddenly you see corners that were hidden before. Those shadows are not obstacles. They are maps pointing to where practice is needed most. Many people avoid this because they feel awkward talking to themselves. But think of it as self-teaching in its purest form. When you try to explain out loud, you can't hide behind vague ideas. A sentence forces structure. A definition forces choice. To form the thought, you must line up steps in order, and if you can't, you immediately discover where your foundation is weak. That awareness is quicker and truer than endless private review. Here's a simple practice you can begin today. After every attempt, spend 60 to 90 seconds explaining what you just did. Say it to yourself, to the walls, even to a silent object on your desk. Then, on a piece of paper, write down one gap you noticed. Not every flaw, just one. This rhythm makes reflection small enough to repeat, but powerful enough to point your next step. That combination, saying and writing, shifts a vague sense of learning into something you can own. There is also a science to this rhythm. Speaking from memory triggers what is called active recall. That means you are not just repeating words, you are reconstructing knowledge from what you remember. Reconstruction strengthens the brain pathways linked to that truth, making retrieval faster and easier later. Silent review leaves memories fragile and easy to lose, but speaking makes them durable. It is the same principle that makes teaching others such a powerful road to mastery. Yet expression holds more than cognitive weight. When you give voice to your own thoughts, you gather scattered energy. Inside, ideas feel like a swirl of clouds with no pattern. The instant you breathe them into sound, they arrange. Your voice ties mind and body together. You feel the unity of breath, tone, and rhythm circling around one teaching. It is not only learning, it feels like alignment. This is why so many find speaking aloud grounding, as though the act itself calls energy back to center. So when you speak a lesson back, you aren't just testing recall. You are moving from knowing into owning. If you can explain it in your own voice, you don't simply hold the knowledge, you wear it, you inhabit it. That ownership prepares you to use it at any moment without needing to consult notes or search videos. But remember, expression is not the finishing line. It is a gateway. Once you've spoken the gaps into the open, you now know exactly where to aim your next round of practice. This is how the loop circles forward. What you articulate guides what you repeat, and what you repeat becomes instinct. And this is the threshold we now approach, the path where ownership transforms into second nature, where wisdom settles deeper through return and repetition. So now we arrive at the closing step, your reminder that mastery is not born from grinding, but from rhythm. Growth comes when you keep circling back with steady devotion. The path is clear. Curate, chunk, do first, explain, repeat. That 5-step lazy loop is your compass. It turns scattered effort into a cycle you can trust. Here's your call. For the next 2 days, choose one small skill and run it through the loop. Then share one quick result in the comments. Less grinding, more smart loops. If this helped you, like, subscribe, and add your voice below.